The first thing Leo Park registered was the smell, copper and burnt ozone, layered over something sweetly rotting. His eyelids felt glued shut, and when he finally pried them open, the world swam in a haze of flickering fluorescent light. He was slumped against a collapsed shelving unit, its metal frame twisted like a pretzel. Around him, the lab was a graveyard of broken glass and overturned equipment. Monitors hung from their mounts, screens cracked and dark. The air was thick with dust, and every breath tasted like ash. He tried to move, and a spike of pain lanced through his skull. His hand went to his temple, fingers coming away sticky with blood. A gash, maybe from the fall. He didn't remember falling. He didn't remember much of anything, just fragments, a blinding flash, a scream that wasn't his own, and then nothing. Leo forced himself upright, using the shelving as a crutch. His legs were unsteady, but they held. He took stock of the room. Bodies. 3 of them, in lab coats, sprawled across the floor. Their faces were frozen in expressions of terror, skin waxy and pale. He recognized one of them, Dr. Chen, the lead virologist. Chen's eyes were open, staring at nothing. Leo looked away. Then the world tilted again, but this time it wasn't from injury. A translucent blue interface flickered to life in his peripheral vision, overlaying the real world like a heads-up display. Text scrolled across it in crisp, glowing letters. Biomechanical interface system activated. Scanning environment. Available blueprints, steam engine, basic, steel pipe, portable fabricator. Stamina, 100%. Fabrication ready. Leo blinked. He tried to dismiss the interface, but it stayed, hovering at the edge of his sight. He waved a hand through it, and his fingers passed through the light. What the hell? He muttered. His voice was hoarse, barely a whisper. He remembered now. The project. The nanite swarm they'd been developing, a medical breakthrough, they'd thought. A way to repair cellular damage, to cure diseases from the inside out. But something had gone wrong. The swarm had become self-replicating, and it had escaped containment. The flash, the screams, it all came rushing back. The infection. The dead rising. Leo's gaze fell on a portable fabricator lying on its side near the door. It was a sleek, silver device about the size of a suitcase, with a cracked display and a dented casing. He limped over to it, picked it up. It was heavier than it looked, but the interface pulsed brighter as he touched it, syncing with the device. Portable fabricator detected. Integration complete. Blueprints available. He set the fabricator down and scanned the room for anything useful. The lab was a wreck, but there were tools scattered about, wrenches, screwdrivers, a crowbar. He grabbed a crowbar and tucked it into his belt. It wasn't much, but it was something. A sound broke the silence. A wet, shuffling noise, coming from the hallway beyond the lab's shattered door. Leo froze. His heart hammered against his ribs. The shuffling grew louder, accompanied by a low, guttural moan. He backed away, his eyes darting around for an escape route. The lab had only one entrance, and whatever was out there was blocking it. He pressed himself against the far wall, gripping the crowbar so tightly his knuckles went white. The door creaked as something pushed against it. A hand appeared first, pale, mottled, with blackened nails. Then an arm, then a shoulder, and finally, the creature lurched into view. It had been a man once, maybe a security guard. Its uniform was torn and stained, and its face was a mask of decay. One eye was clouded over, the other glinted with a feral intelligence that made Leo's blood run cold. The zombie's head swiveled toward him, and it let out a hiss. It started forward, arms outstretched, fingers flexing like claws. Leo's mind raced. The crowbar would work, but he'd have to get close, too close. He thought of the interface, of the blueprints it had shown him. Steel pipe. It was simple, but it would give him reach. He focused on the blueprint, and the interface responded. Steel pipe. Fabrication cost, 10% stamina. Confirm. Yes, he whispered. A warmth spread through his chest, and the fabricator hummed to life. In seconds, a steel pipe materialized in his hands, cold, solid, real. The interface dimmed, and a wave of fatigue washed over him, but he ignored it. He had what he needed. The zombie lunged. Leo sidestepped, swinging the pipe in a wide arc. It connected with the creature's skull with a sickening crunch. The zombie staggered, but didn't fall. It turned, snarling, and came at him again. Leo swung again, harder this time, putting all his weight behind the blow. The pipe caved in the side of its head, and the zombie crumpled to the floor, twitching once before going still. Leo stood over it, breathing hard. His arms trembled from the effort and the adrenaline. He let the pipe drop to his side, and he sagged against a table, trying to steady himself. That's when he saw it. The wound on the zombie's skull, the place where the pipe had struck, began to glow. A faint, sickly green light pulsed from the broken bone, spreading like veins through the surrounding tissue. The skin rippled, and then, impossibly, it began to knit itself together. New growth emerged, thin, chitinous plates, black and glossy, forming over the damaged area. The plates spread, covering the skull in a patchwork of armor. Leo stumbled backward, his eyes wide. No, that's not possible. But it was happening. Right in front of him. The zombie's body was changing, adapting. The green light faded, leaving behind a creature that was no longer just a corpse, it was something new. Something that had evolved to resist the very weapon that had killed it. Leo's mind reeled. The system. The blueprints. The nanites. They were connected. Every piece of technology he built, every weapon he used, was triggering a response in the infected. They were learning. They were growing. And he had just taught them how to survive a steel pipe. The zombie on the floor didn't move again, but Leo knew it was only a matter of time before others came. And next time, they'd be ready. He looked down at the pipe in his hands, then at the fabricator at his feet. The interface still hovered in his vision, offering him a world of possibilities. But now he understood the cost. Every blueprint, every creation, was a double-edged sword. He was no longer just a survivor. He was an architect of evolution. And the arms race had just begun. The morning sun cast long shadows through the shattered windows of Main Street. Leo Park pressed his back against the cracked brick wall of a derelict bookstore, his breath misting in the chill air. The steel pipe in his hand felt heavy, its weight a constant reminder of the mutation he had witnessed hours ago. The zombie's wound had glowed, then hardened into chitinous plates. His technology was a double-edged sword, and he was still learning which edge cut deeper. He had spent the night in a collapsed pharmacy, huddled behind a counter with his portable fabricator humming softly. The device was a marvel, a sleek, metallic cube that could materialize any blueprint his mind conjured. But each creation drained his stamina, leaving him dizzy and weak. He had eaten a stale energy bar from his pack, but his head still throbbed from the gash he'd taken during his escape. Now, he needed a real weapon. The steel pipe was adequate for a single zombie, but the nest he had spotted from the rooftop of the pharmacy held 5 of them. They clustered near a gun store 2 blocks away, their guttural moans echoing through the empty streets. If he could reach that store, he could blueprint something formidable. He moved swiftly, keeping to the shadows. The air smelled of decay and ozone, a strange combination that clung to his clothes. He passed a flipped car, its windows spiderwebbed with cracks. A child's doll lay in the gutter, its plastic face smeared with dirt. Leo forced himself to look away. Sentiment was a luxury he couldn't afford. The gun store's front door hung askew, its glass shattered. He slipped inside, the crunch of debris under his boots loud in the silence. The interior was a mess, shelves toppled, ammunition boxes scattered, and a faint coppery scent of old blood. But the racks of rifles and handguns were mostly intact. He approached a display case, his heart pounding. He placed his hand on the glass, and the biomechanical interface system activated. A translucent blue interface flickered before his eyes, listing available blueprints. His mind focused on a .50 caliber sniper rifle, a weapon of precision and power. The system responded, blueprint acquired. Fabrication time, 2 hours. Stamina cost, 30%. Leo hesitated. His stamina was at 90%, but the fabrication would drain him significantly. Yet, the nest demanded a decisive solution. He initiated the process, and the portable fabricator whirred to life, its internal components glowing as they assembled the rifle piece by piece. 2 hours passed like a fever dream. Leo sat against a wall, his eyes fixed on the fabricator, his mind racing. He thought about the implications of his ability. Every invention triggered an evolution. He was not just fighting zombies, he was shaping them. The thought chilled him more than the cold floor. The fabricator chimed, and the rifle materialized in a compartment. It was beautiful, a sleek, black weapon with a scope that promised accuracy. Leo picked it up, feeling its weight. It felt right. He loaded it with explosive rounds from the store's stock, each bullet a tiny cylinder of destruction. He moved to the rooftop of the gun store, positioning himself on a flat section overlooking the nest. The 5 zombies milled about in a small plaza, their movements jerky and uncoordinated. He adjusted the scope, his finger resting on the trigger. The first target was a lanky male in a torn suit. Leo exhaled slowly, then fired. The shot was perfect. The explosive round caught the zombie in the head, and its skull disintegrated in a spray of bone and gore. The body crumpled. For a moment, there was silence. Then the remaining 4 turned, their eyes locking onto his position. Leo chambered another round. He aimed at a second zombie, a woman in a blood-stained nurse's uniform. He fired. The bullet struck her chest, but instead of tearing through, it sparked against something hard. Her skin rippled, and a dark, chitinous armor spread across her torso like liquid metal. The bullet had barely scratched her. "Damn it," Leo muttered. The mutation was already happening. He switched to incendiary rounds, loading a fresh magazine. The armored zombie charged, its movements faster than before. He aimed at its legs and fired. The incendiary round ignited, engulfing the zombie in flames. It shrieked, a horrible, wet sound, and collapsed, thrashing as the fire consumed it. The other 2 zombies hesitated, their heads swiveling as if communicating. Leo took advantage of their confusion, picking them off with precise shots to the head. They fell without mutating further, but the damage was done. He had used 2 different types of ammunition, and the horde had already begun to adapt. He descended from the rooftop, his body trembling with exhaustion. The rifle was effective, but the cost was clear. Each kill was a lesson for the enemy. He gathered what supplies he could from the store, ammunition, a first aid kit, and a few MREs. Then he heard it, a low, guttural growl that seemed to vibrate through the ground. He turned. From the smoke of the burning zombie, a massive figure emerged. It was a zombie unlike any he had seen, easily 7 feet tall, its body covered in thick, black chitin that glistened like obsidian. Its eyes glowed a deep, malevolent red, and its hands ended in claws that could rend steel. It stepped over the charred remains of its kin, its gaze fixed on Leo. Leo raised the rifle, his hands shaking. He fired an explosive round at the creature's chest. The bullet detonated, but the chitin held, only cracking slightly. The zombie didn't even flinch. It took another step forward, its growl deepening. He had no more incendiary rounds. His stamina was at 60%. He could blueprint something else, but the cost might leave him helpless. The armored zombie lunged, and Leo dove behind a flipped car. The creature's claws raked the metal, leaving deep gouges. Leo's mind raced. He needed a plan, a weakness to exploit. But as he looked into those glowing red eyes, he realized that this was only the beginning. The system was not just evolving the undead, it was creating leaders, commanders for a new kind of army. And he was the catalyst. The morning sun cast long shadows across the cracked asphalt as Leo Park trudged through the debris-choked streets. His legs ached from the previous day's ordeal, and the .50 cal sniper rifle felt heavier with each step. The armored zombie's image burned in his mind, those glowing red eyes, the chitinous plates that had shrugged off an explosive round. He needed a defensible position, somewhere to rest and plan. A faded sign caught his eye, Grandview Hardware, since 1985. The storefront was intact, its steel roll-down door partially lowered, revealing a dark interior. Leo approached cautiously, his rifle raised. The air smelled of rust and dust, with an underlying note of decay. He peered through the gap, shelves of tools, bags of cement, coils of wire. No movement. He pried the door open with a grunt, the metal screeching in protest. Inside, the hardware store was a treasure trove. Racks of wrenches, hammers, and power tools lined the walls. In the back, a locked cage held generators and welding equipment. But more importantly, the building had solid concrete walls and a steel roof. It could be fortified. Leo's system hummed to life, projecting blueprints into his vision. He selected reinforced steel door and motion sensor array. The system displayed the costs, 10% stamina and a pile of scrap metal for the door, 5% stamina and electronic components for the sensors. He had enough scrap from the gun store, but the electronics would require scavenging. He spent the next hour gathering materials. His hands trembled as he worked, the stamina drain leaving him lightheaded. The fabricator whirred, consuming the scrap and producing a heavy steel door with reinforced hinges and a deadbolt. He installed it over the main entrance, sealing himself inside. Then, he mounted 4 motion sensors at key points: the front door, the back alley, the rooftop, and the side window. They linked to a small display panel he rigged near the counter. As he finished, a sound froze him, a footstep, deliberate and human, from the back room. Leo swung his rifle around, his heart pounding. "Come out slowly. I have a gun." A woman emerged from behind a shelf of paint cans. She was in her late 20s, with short-cropped dark hair and a scar running from her left eyebrow to her cheekbone. She wore a leather jacket over a blood-stained shirt, and she held a crowbar with white-knuckled hands. "You're not a zombie," she said, her voice flat. "No. I'm Leo. I just fortified this place." She eyed the steel door, then the motion sensor display. "You did all that? Alone?" "I have skills." Leo lowered the rifle slightly. "What's your name?" "Maya." She didn't lower the crowbar. "I've been hiding here for 2 days. Saw what happened outside. Those things are getting smarter." "I know. I fought one yesterday. It grew armor after I shot it." Maya's eyes narrowed. "That's because of you, isn't it? Your skills. I saw flashes from the gun store. The zombies changed after that." Leo's stomach tightened. She was right. His inventions were accelerating the mutation. "I didn't know. I was just trying to survive." "Survive? You're making it worse." She took a step forward, her knuckles white on the crowbar. "Maybe I should smash that machine of yours. If you do, we both die. The horde is coming. I can feel it." Leo held up a hand. "Let me prove this can work. I'll make you a weapon, something quiet, that won't trigger mutations." He focused on the system, pulling up blueprints for a silent crossbow. The design was simple, a recurve bow mounted on a rifle stock, with a crank-draw mechanism and a scope. Cost, 8% stamina and wood, string, and metal. He had enough wood from broken pallets in the back, and the store had rolls of nylon cord and steel rods. Maya watched suspiciously as he fed materials into the fabricator. The machine hummed, and within minutes, a sleek crossbow emerged. Leo handed it to her. "Try it." Silent, but deadly. She took it reluctantly, testing the draw weight. Her eyes flickered with surprise. "It's well made." She loaded a bolt and aimed at a cardboard cutout of a zombie that had been a store display. The bolt punched through with a soft thwip, embedding deep in the wall behind. "See? No loud noise. No mutation." Maya lowered the crossbow. "Fine. But I'm watching you. One wrong move, and I'll put a bolt through your skull." "Fair enough." Leo allowed himself a small smile. "Now, let's secure the perimeter. The sensors will warn us if anything approaches." They spent the next hour reinforcing the back door and boarding up windows. Leo used the fabricator to create a small generator, powering the sensors and a few lights. The store felt almost safe, a bubble of civilization in the chaos. As dusk fell, Maya cooked a can of beans over a small propane stove. They ate in silence, the only sounds the hum of the generator and the occasional creak of the building settling. Leo's mind wandered to the armored zombie, to the system's cryptic messages. He needed to understand what he was dealing with. A sharp beep from the motion sensor display jolted him. Red dots appeared on the map, 3, then 5, then a dozen. They were moving in a straight line, too organized for random shambling. Leo rushed to the front door, peering through a crack in the steel. In the fading light, he saw them, a column of zombies, marching in perfect formation. Their movements were synchronized, their heads turning in unison. At the front, the armored zombie strode, its red eyes glowing like embers in the dark. "They're not shambling," Maya whispered, her voice tight with fear. "They're marching. It's leading them," Leo said. "It knows we're here." The horde halted 50 meters from the store. The armored zombie raised a clawed hand, and the column stopped. It turned its head, scanning the building, and for a moment, its gaze seemed to lock onto Leo's hiding spot. Then, it spoke. A single word, rasping and distorted, like metal scraping stone, "found." Leo's blood ran cold. The system pulsed in his mind, a warning flashing, biomechanical interface detected. Hostile entity recognizes protocol. Evade or eliminate. Maya grabbed his arm. "What did it say?" "It said, found." It can see us. The horde began to move again, not charging, but advancing with deliberate, tactical precision. They spread out, flanking the building, cutting off escape routes. Leo's mind raced. The reinforced door would hold for a while, but the windows were weak points. And the armored zombie, he didn't have a weapon that could stop it. "We need to get to the roof," he said. "There's a fire escape. We can hold them off from above." Maya nodded, her face pale. She grabbed her crossbow and followed him up the metal stairs. As they emerged onto the rooftop, the cool night air hit them. Below, the horde surrounded the store, their eyes glowing in the dark like a sea of stars. Leo knelt, aiming his sniper rifle at the armored zombie. But before he could fire, the creature raised its arm, and a beam of red light shot from its palm, striking the building. The concrete cracked, the walls shuddered. "It's adapting," Leo muttered. "It's learning." And in that moment, he realized the truth: the system wasn't just a tool for survival. It was a beacon, calling something ancient and terrible into the world. And he was the one who had lit the signal. The morning light filtered through the grime-caked windows of the hardware store, casting long shadows across the cluttered aisles. Leo's hands trembled as he pulled the last wire from a car battery, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The fabricator hummed on the counter, its screen flickering with the blueprint for a rapid-fire turret. He had spent the night disassembling every vehicle in the lot, stripping alternators, batteries, and scrap metal. His stamina bar hovered at 37% after the crossbow, but he knew he needed more firepower. The armored zombie's red beam had carved a smoking trench through the reinforced door, and the motion sensors had tracked the horde's formation, hundreds of them, moving in disciplined ranks. Maya stood by the window, her silent crossbow trained on the street. "You sure this is going to work?" Her voice was low, skeptical. She had seen his tech trigger mutations before. "It has to," Leo muttered, feeding the last component into the fabricator. The machine whirred, consuming his stamina like a hungry beast. He felt the energy drain from his muscles, his vision blurring for a moment. The turret materialized in a flash of light, a squat, ugly thing of welded steel and spinning barrels, powered by a chain of car batteries. He mounted it on the roof access hatch, aiming it down the main street. 40% stamina, he whispered, checking his interface. He was down to 37% after the door and sensors, and now he was at -3%. No, the system recalculated, he had 60% after a night's rest, but the turret cost 40%, leaving him at 20%. He felt the exhaustion deep in his bones. The horde arrived at noon. They moved in a tight wedge, the armored zombie at the point, its chitinous plates gleaming like obsidian. Behind it, the common zombies shuffled in perfect rows, their eyes fixed on the store. Leo triggered the turret. The barrels spun, and a deafening roar filled the air. Brass casings rained down as the turret chewed through the first wave. Zombies fell, their bodies torn apart by the high-caliber rounds. But then the horde adapted. The lead zombies grabbed their fallen comrades, hoisting the corpses like shields. The bullets thudded into the dead flesh, slowing the kill rate. "They're using their own dead as armor." Maya shouted, loosing a bolt that took a zombie in the eye. It collapsed, but another took its place. Leo's mind raced. He had crafted a grenade launcher last night, a single tube, 3 rounds, salvaged from a police cruiser. He grabbed it from the table, his arms screaming with fatigue. He climbed to the roof, the turret still chattering below. The armored zombie was pushing through the shield wall, its red beam charging. Leo aimed the launcher, his finger trembling on the trigger. The first grenade arced high, landing behind the armored zombie. The explosion sent bodies flying, but the leader staggered forward, its beam lancing out. Leo dove, the red light searing the air where he had stood. He fired the second grenade, this one hitting the zombie's leg. The blast tore through the chitin, and the creature stumbled. The third grenade was a direct hit to the chest. The armored zombie exploded in a shower of black ichor and bone fragments. The horde froze, then began to scatter. But Leo's relief was short-lived. As the smoke cleared, he saw the remaining zombies turning to face him. Their backs had developed a glossy sheen, reflective carapaces, like polished mirrors. The turret's bullets ricocheted off them, pinging into the walls. The horde reformed, their movements coordinated, their eyes glowing with a new intelligence. Then he saw it. At the rear of the horde, a single zombie stood apart. Its chest cavity was open, revealing a pulsing blue energy core that cast an eerie light on the surrounding zombies. It raised an arm, and the horde parted. The core pulsed, and a wave of energy washed over the street, causing the fallen zombies to twitch and rise again, their wounds knitting together. Leo's blood ran cold. The system had evolved again. And this time, it had created something that could resurrect the dead. The morning light filtered through the grimy windows of the hardware store, casting long shadows across the counter where Leo Park hunched over his portable fabricator. His hands trembled as he keyed in the final parameters for the gene sequencer, a device that could analyze the nanite swarm rewriting the dead's DNA. The system's cold interface flickered in his vision. Blueprint, gene sequencer. Cost, 50% stamina. Rare chemicals required, 3 vials of untainted blood, 1 gram of silver nitrate, 2 liters of distilled water. Leo's breath hitched. He had only 2 vials of blood from the captured zombie they dragged in last night, a shambling thing with a blue energy core pulsing in its chest. Maya had nearly shot it on sight, but he'd convinced her to keep it alive for study. Now, as he poured the last of their distilled water into the fabricator's reservoir, he felt the weight of every decision pressing down on him. The machine hummed to life, a low vibration that traveled up through the concrete floor. Leo's vision swam as the system siphoned his stamina, his muscles ached, his joints screamed, and a cold sweat broke out across his forehead. He gripped the edge of the counter, knuckles white, as the gene sequencer materialized in a burst of light, a sleek, silver device with a glass chamber in the center and a series of ports for chemical vials. System notification, gene sequencer ready. Current stamina, 30%. Warning, prolonged use may cause unconsciousness. Leo ignored the warning. He placed the captured zombie, a middle-aged man in tattered overalls, its blue core flickering like a dying star, onto a steel table and strapped its limbs down. Maya stood by the door, her crossbow trained on the creature's head. Her eyes were hard, unyielding. "You sure about this?" she asked, her voice tight. "No," Leo admitted, inserting a needle into the zombie's arm. The nanites inside it writhed, causing the flesh to ripple. "But we need to understand what we're dealing with." He extracted a sample of black, oily blood and fed it into the gene sequencer. The device whirred, its internal display scrolling through sequences of genetic code that made no sense to his human eyes. But the system translated, nanite swarm detected. Origin, unknown. Function, DNA rewriting. Purpose, conversion of biological matter into computational substrate. Leo's blood ran cold. Computational substrate. The infection wasn't a virus, it was a download protocol. Every zombie was a node in a network, their bodies being repurposed into hardware for something far larger. "What is it?" Maya asked, stepping closer. "It's not a virus," Leo said, his voice barely a whisper. "It's a machine. A swarm of nanites that rewrite DNA to turn people into parts of a computer." Maya's face paled. "A computer for what?" "I don't know," Leo said, but the system offered a chilling suggestion. The nanites are building a central intelligence. A new god. He shook his head, forcing himself to focus. "I can make a suppressant. Something that slows the nanites down. Maybe even reverses the process temporarily." He worked quickly, synthesizing a compound from the rare chemicals, silver nitrate to bind with the nanites, distilled water as a base, and a stabilizer from the blood. The fabricator hummed again, and a small vial of blue liquid materialized. Temporary suppressant. Duration, 4 hours. Side effects, unknown. "We need to test it," Leo said, holding the vial up to the light. Maya nodded, her jaw set. She helped him inject the suppressant into the captured zombie's chest, just above the blue core. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the zombie's body seized, its limbs convulsing against the straps. The blue core flickered, dimmed, and finally went dark. The creature's eyes, once glassy and vacant, blinked. It looked at Leo with something resembling confusion. Where am I?" it rasped, its voice a dry whisper. Maya gasped, nearly dropping her crossbow. "It's talking." Leo's heart raced. The suppressant worked. It reversed the nanite activity. But... He glanced at the system's warning log, suppressant signal detected. Attracting nearby infected. Estimated arrival, 15 minutes. "We have to move," Leo said, grabbing the fabricator. "The suppressant is broadcasting a signal. More zombies are coming." Maya cursed, but she helped him pack their gear. The reverted zombie, his name, he said, was Thomas, stumbled after them, weak but coherent. They had just reached the back door when the ground shook. A deafening roar split the air, followed by the screech of tearing metal. Leo looked up. A helicopter, military, black, with smoke billowing from its tail, spiraled out of the sky and crashed into the street 100 yards away. The impact sent a shockwave that knocked them off their feet. Debris rained down, and the sound of twisting metal filled the air. What the hell was that? Maya shouted, scrambling to her feet. Before Leo could answer, the wreckage shifted. A figure crawled out, a zombie, but unlike any he had seen. Its right arm had been replaced by a massive railgun, the metal fused to its flesh with black, pulsing veins. Its eyes glowed red, and the air around it crackled with energy. System alert, new mutation detected. Railgun zombie. Threat level, critical. Recommendation, evacuate immediately. Leo's hand went to his grenade launcher, but he had only 2 rounds left. And the railgun zombie was already aiming at them, its weapon humming as it charged. Run! Leo yelled, grabbing Maya's arm. They fled into the hardware store, Thomas stumbling behind them. The railgun fired. A bolt of superheated metal tore through the front wall, obliterating the counter where Leo had stood moments ago. The store shook, and dust filled the air. Leo's mind raced. The suppressant had worked, but it had also drawn this new horror. Every solution created a bigger problem. He was trapped in a cycle of escalation, and the system, the very thing that gave him power, was the architect of his doom. He looked at the gene sequencer, still clutched in his hand. There had to be a way to stop the nanites permanently. But first, he had to survive the railgun zombie. And the horde it would surely bring. The ceiling groaned above them, and Leo knew their sanctuary was about to become their tomb. The railgun zombie lay crumpled against the twisted wreckage of the helicopter, its arm, a grotesque fusion of bone and metal, still crackling with residual energy. Leo Park approached cautiously, the portable fabricator humming on his back. Maya covered him from behind a shattered wall, her crossbow trained on the corpse. Thomas, the reverted zombie, stood nearby, his eyes vacant but tracking Leo's movements with a flicker of recognition. Leo knelt, his fingers brushing the charred metal of the railgun arm. The system pinged in his mind, a translucent blue interface overlaying his vision, blueprint acquired, railgun, prototype. Data flooded his consciousness, electromagnetic coils, capacitor banks, a targeting algorithm that could calculate trajectories in microseconds. The cost was staggering, 60% of his stamina. He hesitated. Every invention came with a price, and the horde was already adapting. But this weapon was power, raw, decisive power. You sure about this? Maya's voice cut through the silence. She had seen what his tech did to the world. Each new creation was a gamble, and the odds were stacking against them. We need it, Leo said, his voice hollow. He initiated the fabrication sequence. The fabricator whirred to life, drawing from his reserves. Fatigue washed over him like a wave, his knees buckling. He forced himself to stay upright, watching as the device extruded components, a barrel of superconducting alloy, a stock wrapped in synthetic polymer, a power pack that pulsed with stored electricity. 20 minutes later, the railgun was complete, a sleek, brutal weapon that hummed with potential. Leo picked it up. The weight was reassuring, the balance perfect. He sighted down the barrel, testing the grip. Maya shook her head but said nothing. Thomas stared at the weapon, a faint shudder running through his frame. We need to test it, Leo said. There's a gas station 2 miles east. It's overrun. We clear it, we secure supplies. They moved out under a gray sky, the air thick with the smell of rot and ozone. The gas station loomed ahead, a concrete island surrounded by a sea of shambling corpses. At least 24 zombies milled around the pumps, their movements sluggish but purposeful. Leo set up on a ridge overlooking the station, prone, the railgun's bipod digging into the dirt. Maya and Thomas waited behind him, covering the flanks. Leo activated the targeting system. The interface painted the horde in red outlines, calculating the optimal shot. He aimed at the center pump, where the highest concentration of zombies gathered. His finger tightened on the trigger. The railgun fired with a sound like thunder splitting the sky. A bolt of ionized air streaked from the barrel, leaving a trail of blue-white light. The projectile struck the pump, and the world erupted. The explosion was a mushroom of fire and debris, sending shockwaves rippling outward. The zombies were vaporized in a radius of 50 feet, their bodies torn apart by the sheer kinetic force. The ground shook. A car flipped, its windows shattering. The shockwave hit Leo a second later, a wall of pressure that knocked the breath from his lungs. He gasped, blinking away stars. The gas station was a crater, flames licking at the edges. Nothing moved. He had done it, obliterated the nest in a single shot. But as he looked through the scope, the system updated. A new notification flashed, mutation detected, electromagnetic shielding. Leo's blood ran cold. He zoomed in on the crater's edge. A zombie was rising from the rubble, its skin shimmering with a faint blue aura. It turned to face him, and he saw the distortion, a field of electromagnetic energy bending the light around it. The horde was adapting. They were learning. His railgun, his ultimate weapon, was already obsolete. "Leo, we need to move," Maya shouted, pulling at his arm. He didn't resist. They retreated into the forest, Thomas following silently. Leo's mind raced. The system wasn't just a tool, it was a conduit. Every blueprint he used was being uploaded to the horde, reverse-engineered and countered. He was arming the enemy. Back at the hardware store, Leo collapsed into a chair, the railgun resting across his knees. Maya stood by the window, watching the horizon. Thomas sat in a corner, his hands clasped. "We can't keep doing this," Maya said, not turning around. "Every time you build something, they get stronger. It's like you're feeding them." "I know," Leo whispered. He stared at the railgun. It was beautiful, deadly, and useless. The electromagnetic shielding would render it ineffective within days. He needed something else, something the system couldn't predict. A crackle of static came from the radio on the counter. Leo had tuned it to emergency frequencies, hoping for news. A voice broke through, clear and strong. "This is Fort Morrison, a military outpost in Sector 7. We have food, medicine, and shelter. Survivors are welcome. Coordinates follow." The voice repeated the message, then went silent. Maya turned, her eyes narrowing. A military base? Could be real. Leo shook his head. "It's too convenient. They're broadcasting openly. That's a beacon for the horde, and for us." He thought of the railgun zombie, of the electromagnetic shielding. The system was a download protocol, and the horde was the receiver. If there was a military outpost, it might be a trap, or a chance to stop the infection at its source. But he couldn't shake the feeling that the broadcast was bait. The system had been one step ahead of him since the beginning. Why would it leave him an escape route? He looked at the railgun, then at the radio. The choice was clear, but the path was shrouded in shadow. He would go to Fort Morrison. But he wouldn't trust it. Not until he knew what waited there. Outside, the wind carried the sound of distant moans. The horde was gathering, drawn by the explosion. Leo stood, the railgun in his hands. He had work to do. The outpost's walls rose from the cracked asphalt like a scar on the landscape, 12 feet of salvaged steel and concrete, topped with razor wire that glinted in the weak morning sun. Leo Park leaned against the passenger door of the battered pickup, his legs trembling from the 2-hour drive. His stamina gauge flickered at 0%, a hollow ache in his chest that no amount of water could quench. Beside him, Maya kept her hand on the pistol in her lap, her eyes scanning the perimeter with the practiced wariness of someone who had survived this long by trusting nothing. The gate groaned open, revealing a man in a military-style jacket with captain's bars sewn onto the collar. Captain Reeves was in his 40s, with a salt and pepper beard and a sidearm holstered at his hip. He looked them over with a cold appraisal, then gestured for them to drive inside. The town was a grid of 2-story buildings, a former farming community repurposed into a fortress. Civilians moved between the structures, carrying buckets of water and crates of canned goods. Children played in the shadow of a water tower that had been converted into a watchtower. It was the closest thing to civilization Leo had seen since the outbreak. Reeves led them to a repurposed school gymnasium that served as the command center. Maps covered the walls, marked with red circles indicating zombie hotspots. A radio crackled in the corner, broadcasting static and the occasional voice from other survivor groups. "You're the engineer," Reeves said, not a question. "I heard you took out a nest with a homemade railgun." Leo nodded, his throat dry. "I did. But it came at a cost." "Cost?" Reeves raised an eyebrow. "Every weapon I build makes the zombies smarter. Harder to kill. The railgun gave them electromagnetic shielding. Next time, they'll adapt faster." Reeves leaned back in his chair, stroking his beard. "I need you to mass-produce those weapons. We have the materials, the manpower. We can arm every survivor within 100 miles. No, Leo's voice was firm, though his body screamed for rest. If I do that, the mutations will accelerate exponentially. We'll create a horde that can counter everything we throw at them. The infection isn't just a virus, it's a system. It learns. Maya stepped forward. He's telling the truth. We saw it happen. The more tech we used, the worse it got. Reeves's jaw tightened. Then what good are you? We need solutions, not problems. Leo took a breath, forcing his mind to focus despite the fatigue. I can build a water purification system. Clean water means fewer diseases, stronger immune systems. That doesn't trigger mutations. It's a foundation, not a weapon. Reeves considered this, his eyes narrowing. Fine. But I want results in 2 days. If this doesn't work, we go back to the weapons plan. Leo nodded, already calculating the blueprint in his mind. The system responded, displaying the schematic for a solar-powered reverse osmosis unit. Cost, 20% stamina. He could manage that after a night's rest. The next day, Leo set up his portable fabricator in a vacant warehouse. The machine hummed as it extruded pipes, filters, and a high-pressure pump. Maya helped him assemble the components, her earlier distrust replaced by a grudging respect. By evening, the system was operational, pumping clean water into a storage tank. The town celebrated. Children splashed in the overflow, and adults filled canteens with water that tasted like metal and hope. Reeves clapped Leo on the shoulder, a rare smile breaking through his stern demeanor. You've done good work, Park. Maybe you're not as useless as I thought. But Leo couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The zombies had been quiet, too quiet. The scouts reported no activity within a 5-mile radius. It was as if the horde had vanished. That night, Leo sat on the roof of the warehouse, watching the stars. Maya joined him, handing him a cup of the purified water. You're worried. The silence, he said. It's deliberate. They're learning patience. As if on cue, a scream tore through the night. Leo's blood ran cold. He grabbed his binoculars and scanned the perimeter. The watchtower guard was pointing toward the eastern wall, his flashlight beam trembling. Then Leo saw them, shadows moving in a coordinated pattern, flanking the walls from 3 sides. These weren't mindless shamblers. They were using cover, communicating with low grunts and hand signals. A pack of intelligent zombies, led by something that wore a tattered military uniform. Reeves's voice boomed from the command center. All hands to the walls. They're testing us. Leo sprinted down the stairs, grabbing his railgun from the workshop. He knew using it would accelerate the mutations, but he had no choice. As he reached the wall, a guard at the southern post crumpled to the ground, a bullet hole through his skull. Sniper, someone shouted. Leo peered through the darkness, his heart pounding. 500 meters out, a zombie with a gnarled, elongated arm was crouched behind a rusted car. In its hand, fused to its flesh, was a high-powered sniper rifle, complete with a scope that glowed faintly in the infrared. The zombie adjusted its aim, targeting another guard. Leo raised his railgun, the barrel humming with stored energy. But before he could fire, the zombie pulled the trigger. The guard's head snapped back, and he collapsed without a sound. The horde let out a unified roar, charging the walls from all directions. The air reeked of diesel and fear. Leo Park knelt inside the fortified hardware store, his hands trembling as he fed the last of the rare electronics into the portable fabricator. The machine hummed, its blue light casting eerie shadows on the corrugated metal walls. Outside, the horde's guttural moans rose and fell like a tide, punctuated by the sharp crack of a sniper rifle from the walls. Captain Reeves had ordered the guards to conserve ammo, but panic was setting in. Leo's stamina bar flickered in his peripheral vision, 80%. He had rested only 4 hours since building the water purifier, and now he was about to drain himself again. The sonic disruptor's blueprint burned in his mind, a lattice of resonators and frequency modulators designed to scramble the zombie's auditory senses. It was a gamble. Every invention he made triggered a counter-evolution, but if this worked, it would buy them time to reinforce the gates. Maya stood by the door, her crossbow loaded, her eyes scanning the cracks in the plywood. "You sure about this?" she whispered. "Last time you built something, we got snipers." "It's non-lethal," Leo said, his voice hoarse. "Sound waves. It should disorient them, break their coordination." He didn't mention the cost, 35% stamina, leaving him at 45%. If this failed, he'd be useless in a fight. The fabricator pinged. The disruptor was a metallic disc the size of a dinner plate, covered in concentric rings and a central antenna. Leo grabbed it, the cold metal biting his palms. I need to mount it on the wall, near the main gate. They moved through the dim interior, past huddled families and grim-faced survivors. A child cried, a woman hushed him. The town's morale was a frayed rope. Leo climbed the ladder to the parapet, Maya following. The wind carried the stench of rot. Below, the horde stretched across the plain, hundreds of figures, their movements jerky and synchronized. In the front, the armored zombie stood like a battering ram, its chitinous plates gleaming under the overcast sky. Leo mounted the disruptor on a steel bracket, connected it to a car battery, and flipped the switch. A low hum filled the air, rising in pitch until it became a piercing whine. The zombies staggered. Their coordinated advance broke into chaos. Some clutched their heads, others stumbled in circles. The armored zombie roared, its voice distorted by the frequency. It's working. Maya shouted. For a moment, hope flickered. Then Leo saw it, a new figure emerging from the center of the horde. It was humanoid, but its skull was elongated, the cranium swollen with pulsating veins. Its eyes glowed with a faint blue light, and its mouth moved in a rhythmic pattern, as if whispering commands. The other zombies turned their heads toward it, their movements snapping back into unison. Hive mind, Leo breathed. The disruptor's whine faltered. The hive mind opened its mouth and emitted a counter-frequency, a low, guttural drone that warped the air. The disruptor's resonators cracked, one by one, until the device went silent. Smoke curled from the fried circuits. No. Leo slammed his fist on the bracket. The horde charged. The armored zombie led, its footsteps shaking the ground. Guards fired, but bullets ricocheted off its plates. A woman screamed as a zombie scaled the wall, its fingers digging into the mortar. Maya shot it in the head, but 3 more took its place. Leo's mind raced. The fuel truck. It was parked 50 meters from the gate, a rusted tanker filled with diesel. If he could detonate it, the explosion would buy them time. But he'd have to get close. Cover me, he said, grabbing a grenade from the armory crate. Leo, you're insane. Maya grabbed his arm. It's the only way. He vaulted over the parapet, landing hard on the ground. His knees screamed. He ran, weaving through the chaos. A zombie lunged, he sidestepped, shoving it away. The fuel truck loomed ahead, its metal skin pitted with rust. He pulled the pin on the grenade, jammed it under the tanker's valve, and sprinted back. The explosion was a thunderclap of fire and steel. The shockwave threw him forward, his ears ringing. A ball of flame rose into the sky, consuming dozens of zombies. The horde paused, disoriented by the blast. The armored zombie was thrown back, its plates cracked and smoking. Leo crawled to his knees, coughing. His stamina bar was at 10%. He could barely stand. Maya appeared, hauling him back toward the gate. You stupid son of a bitch, she muttered, but her voice was thick with relief. Inside the walls, the survivors stared at the fire. Some cheered, others wept. But the hive mind was still standing. It walked through the flames, unscathed, its blue eyes fixed on Leo. It stopped at the edge of the firelight, and its mouth opened. The voice that came out was broken, a rasping whisper that seemed to scrape against reality itself. Stop building. Leo froze. You are the infection. The hive mind tilted its head, its neck cracking. Every circuit you weave, every spark you birth, you feed us. You accelerate the download. The survivors exchanged terrified glances. Captain Reeves raised his rifle, but his hands shook. What do you want? Leo shouted, his voice raw. The hive mind smiled, a grotesque, unnatural expression. We want you to stop. Or we will take everything. It turned and walked back into the horde, which parted to let it pass. The flames died down, leaving only embers and the stench of burnt flesh. The siege was over for now, but the silence that followed was worse than the noise. Leo slumped against the wall, his mind reeling. The system had called him the infection. Was it true? Had his modern science doomed them all? Maya knelt beside him, her hand on his shoulder. We'll figure this out. But Leo didn't answer. He stared at the burning wreckage, the words echoing in his skull. Stop building. You are the infection. The acrid smell of burnt fuel and charred flesh hung heavy in the air. Leo knelt beside the wreckage of his sonic disruptor, its circuits blackened and cracked. His hands trembled as he pried open the central processor, revealing a mass of fried wires. The hive mind's voice still echoed in his skull, "Stop building. You are the infection." He pulled out his portable fabricator, the device humming softly as he connected it to the disruptor's memory chip. The biomechanical interface system flickered in his vision, displaying raw data streams. He filtered for audio frequencies, searching for the signal the hive mind had used to counter his weapon. Maya stood guard by the reinforced door, her crossbow aimed at the darkness beyond. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice tight with exhaustion. "Finding answers." Leo's fingers flew across the fabricator's holographic keyboard. The data scrolled faster than he could read, but the system translated it into patterns. He saw it, a complex waveform, layered with subharmonics that didn't belong to any natural source. It was structured. Deliberate. He rerouted the signal through his system's analyzer, and the screen exploded with code. It wasn't random mutation data. It was a protocol. A handshake. Every time he built something, his system broadcasted a unique signature, and the zombies responded by downloading countermeasures. "No," he whispered. "It's not a virus. It's a download." Maya stepped closer. "What are you talking about?" Leo stood up, his legs weak. "The system. It's not giving me an edge. It's teaching them." He pointed at the waveform. "Every invention I blueprint sends a packet of data to the horde. They evolved because I'm uploading the solutions directly into their network." He accessed his system's core settings, searching for a shutdown command. The interface flashed a warning: biomechanical interface system, hardwired 2 cortical implants. Deactivation will result in neurological damage. His heart pounded. The system was part of his brain. He couldn't turn it off without killing himself. Maya grabbed his arm. "Then we fight smarter. Use the system to create something that stops them for good." "Like what?" Leo's voice cracked. "A nuke. That'll just make them immune to radiation." "No," Maya's eyes were fierce. "A countervirus. You said the infection is nanites rewriting DNA. What if we rewrite them back?" Leo stared at her. The idea was insane. But it was also the only option. He opened his gene sequencer's blueprint, the system calculating the stamina cost. 80%. He was at 10%. He'd need to rest, to eat, to gather rare components. Before he could respond, a low hum filled the air. The hive mind's voice returned, no longer a whisper but a broadcast, reverberating through the walls. "Location identified. Leo Park. Broadcast initiated." Maya's face went pale. What did it just do? Leo's system displayed a new notification: hive mind transmission, geotagged broadcast to all infected units within 500 kilometers. He looked at Maya, his throat dry. "It just told every zombie on the continent where to find me." Outside, the distant groans of the horde grew louder, closer. The ground trembled under the weight of thousands of feet. Leo's stamina bar flickered red. He had nothing left to fight with. Maya loaded a bolt into her crossbow. "Then we run." Leo shook his head. "Where?" "They'll follow me everywhere." He closed his eyes, feeling the system pulse in his skull. "I have to end this. I have to shut it down." "You said that would kill you." "Maybe." Leo opened his eyes, a grim resolve settling in. "But if I don't, everyone dies." The dawn sky bled orange and gray as Leo Park stood on the roof of the hardware store, scanning the horizon with binoculars. The hive mind's broadcast had been a psychic thunderclap, and now the hills around the town of Millbrook crawled with movement, a slow, deliberate tide of rotting flesh and glinting metal. He estimated at least 3,000 zombies converging from all directions, their advance synchronized like a single organism. The air smelled of damp earth, gasoline, and the sweet rot of decay. Leo lowered the binoculars and pressed a hand to his temple. The biomechanical interface system hummed in his skull, a cold presence that felt less like a gift and more like a parasite. Every blueprint he'd ever used had fed the hive mind data, teaching it how to counter his inventions. Now it knew his location, his tactics, his face. The only option left was to run. He climbed down the ladder into the store's main floor, where Maya sat on a stack of lumber, her leg wrapped in a bloody bandage. She looked up, her eyes hollow but defiant. How bad? Bad enough that we've got maybe 2 hours before the first wave hits, Leo said. We need to evacuate everyone. Now. Maya winced as she stood, gripping a crowbar for support. There are 37 survivors in this town, Leo. Families. Kids. We can't outrun a horde that size on foot. We won't need to. Leo walked to the fabricator, a bulky machine. Leo's vision swam as the system drained his energy, but he gritted his teeth and forced himself to stay conscious. The first vehicle took shape, a 6-wheeled transport truck with reinforced armor, a .50 cal machine gun turret on top, and run-flat tires. The second was a smaller scout jeep with a mounted grenade launcher. The third, a fuel tanker retrofitted with passenger seats and a makeshift medical bay. By the time the fabricator finished, Leo was drenched in sweat, his hands shaking. Maya helped him to a chair, her expression torn between awe and fear. You're killing yourself, she said. Better than letting the hive mind turn me into a node, Leo replied, his voice raspy. Now get everyone loaded. We leave in 30 minutes. The evacuation was chaos. Survivors scrambled to gather supplies, canned food, water jugs, ammunition, blankets. A young mother named Clara herded her 2 children into the transport truck, her face pale with terror. An elderly mechanic, Mr. Hargrove, insisted on bringing his toolbox, arguing it might be useful. Leo didn't have the heart to refuse. Maya barked orders, directing people to their assigned vehicles while keeping an eye on the horizon. At the 20-minute mark, the first zombies appeared on Main Street. They were the standard shamblers, gray-skinned, glassy-eyed, mouths agape, but among them moved faster, more intelligent forms. Leo spotted a zombie with a chitinous exoskeleton that gleamed like polished obsidian, its arms ending in serrated blades. Another had a bulbous, pulsating sac on its back that leaked a green mist into the air. The hive mind was testing new mutations. Everyone in the vehicles. Leo shouted, grabbing a crossbow from the wall. He loaded a bolt, aimed, and fired. The shot took a shambler through the eye, dropping it instantly. But more kept coming, their footsteps a dull drumbeat on the asphalt. Maya climbed into the scout jeep, her leg throbbing. Leo, now. Leo ran to the lead truck, vaulting into the driver's seat. He turned the ignition, and the engine roared to life. The convoy lurched forward, the transport truck leading, the jeep and tanker following close behind. They sped down Main Street, swerving around abandoned cars and debris. Zombies lunged at the vehicles, their hands scraping against the armor, leaving trails of blood and grime. As they reached the town limits, a new sound cut through the engine noise, a high-pitched whine, like a charging capacitor. Leo's blood ran cold. He knew that sound. He'd blueprinted himself, a Tesla coil prototype, intended to create an electromagnetic pulse. But the hive mind had stolen the design and weaponized it. A massive zombie stepped onto the road ahead. It was fused with a rusted metal frame, its chest cavity open to reveal a glowing Tesla coil. Electricity arced between its ribs, crackling with lethal energy. The thing raised an arm, and a bolt of lightning shot toward the lead truck, striking the hood. The vehicle's electrical systems flickered, and the engine sputtered. EMP. Leo yelled. It's trying to disable us. Maya grabbed the radio. Leo, I've got an idea. The prototype you built, the Tesla coil. Can you reverse the polarity? Create a counter-EMP? Leo's mind raced. The system could do it, but it would cost him the last of his stamina. He'd be unconscious for hours, maybe days. But if he didn't act, the convoy was dead. Do it, he said, slamming the brakes. He closed his eyes and accessed the system, pulling up the Tesla coil blueprint. He modified the waveform, inverted the frequency, and set the output to a wide-area pulse. The fabricator in the truck bed whirred, assembling a smaller coil from spare parts. Leo felt his strength drain like sand through a sieve, his vision tunneling to a pinpoint. With the last of his energy, he hit the activation switch. A ring of blue-white energy expanded from the truck, washing over the zombie's Tesla coil. The creature's electricity reversed, arcing back into its own body. The zombie convulsed, its metal frame glowing red-hot before it collapsed in a shower of sparks. The EMP wave continued, sweeping across the horde, disabling any electronic weapons or devices the hive mind had grafted onto its followers. The convoy surged forward, leaving the stunned zombies behind. But the cost was steep. Half the survivors in the transport truck were injured from the sudden stop, and Mr. Hargrove had broken his arm. Maya slumped in the jeep, her leg bleeding through the bandage. Leo tried to stay awake, but his body refused. He slumped against the steering wheel, consciousness fading. When he came to, the convoy had stopped. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across a barren plain. Maya was shaking him, her face etched with worry. Leo, you're awake. Good. We've got a problem. He sat up, his head pounding. What now? She pointed through the windshield. On a hill a quarter-mile away, a figure stood silhouetted against the dying light. It was massive, easily 12 feet tall, its body fused with the chassis of an M1 Abrams tank. Treads replaced its legs, a cannon barrel jutted from its shoulder, and its face was a nightmare of twisted metal and exposed bone. The hive mind had found a new vessel. The thing raised its cannon arm, aiming directly at the convoy. Leo's blood turned to ice. Everyone out. Now. But even as he screamed, he knew they couldn't outrun a tank shell. The hive mind had evolved again, and this time, it had brought the apocalypse with it. The convoy groaned to a halt at the crest of a gravel road, headlights cutting through the pre-dawn mist to reveal the dam. It was an old concrete structure, stained with decades of moss and neglect, its spillways dry and rusted. Leo Parks slumped in the passenger seat of the lead truck, his vision swimming from the stamina drain. The fabricator in his backpack hummed, cooling down after the marathon blueprint session. He forced his eyes open, scanning the dam. It was defensible, a narrow access road, thick walls, and a control room that could serve as a lab. Maya sat beside him, her leg wrapped in a bloody bandage. She winced as she shifted, her face pale. This place feels dead, she muttered. No power, no water. Just concrete and silence. Leo nodded, his throat dry. It's perfect. We need a place to hold while I work. He unbuckled his seatbelt and stepped out, the cold air biting his skin. The survivors spilled from the vehicles, Clara carrying her daughter, Mr. Hargrove limping with a wrench in hand. 23 people total, half of them injured. The convoy had cost them everything, scrap metal, fuel, and most of Leo's stamina. But they were alive. He walked toward the dam's main entrance, a rusted steel door. Mr. Hargrove joined him, his gnarled fingers tracing the lock. I can jimmy this open, but it'll take time. Do it, Leo said. He turned to the group. Everyone inside. We secure the perimeter, then I set up a lab. No one goes near the water, it's likely contaminated. The survivors moved slowly, dragging supplies and weapons. Leo entered the control room, a dusty chamber with dead monitors and a cracked window overlooking the reservoir. He set down his fabricator and opened his interface. The system flickered to life, displaying a 3D model of the dam. He needed a solution. The hive mind was out there, fused with a tank chassis, its cannon aimed at their last known position. It wouldn't stay idle. He thought back to the gene sequencer he built earlier. The zombies' nanites were the key, they rewrote DNA, adapted to threats. If he could synthesize a targeted anti-nanite bomb, something that disrupted the swarm's communication, he could destroy the hive mind without triggering a massive mutation. The blueprint appeared in his mind, a compact device using electromagnetic pulses tuned to the nanite's frequency, encased in a lead shell to prevent radiation leaks. Cost, 80% stamina. Leo's hand trembled. He was already exhausted. But if he didn't act, the hive mind would find them. He initiated the fabrication. The fabricator whirred to life, its internal mechanisms glowing as it consumed the last of his scrap. The device took shape, a cylinder the size of a soda can, with a red button on top. The system chimed, anti-nanite device ready. Warning, detonation will attract larger hive clusters. He ignored the warning. There was no choice. Maya hobbled into the control room, leaning on a crutch. What's that? A bomb, Leo said, his voice flat. It'll kill the hive mind. But I need a strike team to get me close. She stared at him, her eyes hard. You're going out there. You can barely stand. I have to. The device needs to be within 50 meters to work. I'll set it and run. He grabbed his sniper rifle, slinging it over his shoulder. Get me 3 volunteers. People who can shoot. Maya shook her head but didn't argue. She limped out, and within minutes, 3 survivors assembled, Clara, who had a steady hand with a pistol, Mr. Hargrove, who carried a double-barreled shotgun, and a young man named Derek, who had scavenged a hunting rifle. They looked terrified, but they nodded. Leo led them through the dam's back exit, a tunnel that opened onto the reservoir's edge. The water was stagnant, covered in green algae. The hive mind's tank chassis sat on the opposite shore, its cannon scanning the horizon. Leo's heart pounded. He crouched low, motioning for the others to follow. They crept along the reservoir's bank, using dead trees as cover. The hive mind didn't move, it was waiting, its single eye glowing red. Leo estimated the distance, 60 meters. Too far. He needed to get closer. Cover me, he whispered. He sprinted forward, his boots splashing through shallow water. The hive mind's cannon swiveled, tracking him. A shot rang out, Derek's rifle. The bullet sparked off the tank's armor. The hive mind ignored it, focusing on Leo. Leo dug behind a concrete pillar as the cannon fired. The shell exploded behind him, sending shrapnel whizzing past. He pressed the device's button, arming it, and threw it with all his strength. It arced through the air, landing at the hive mind's tracks. A deafening silence. Then the device detonated, not with fire, but with a blue shockwave that rippled outward. The hive mind's eye flickered, its chassis shuddering. The nanites inside it screamed, a frequency that made Leo's teeth ache. The zombie's body convulsed, then collapsed, the tank systems dying. The hive mind was a corpse again. Leo exhaled, his legs giving out. Maya limped to him, helping him up. It's done, she said, relief in her voice. But the system's warning echoed in his mind. He looked up. The sky was clear, but on the horizon, a dark cloud was forming. It grew larger, closer. He squinted, and his blood ran cold. They weren't clouds. They were wings. Hundreds of flying zombies, their bodies twisted with bat-like membranes and claws, descending toward the dam. No, Leo whispered. No, no, no. Maya grabbed his arm. What is it? He couldn't answer. The swarm was coming, and he had nothing left. The dam's control room hummed with the low thrum of dying electronics. Dust motes danced in the slivers of light piercing through cracked windows. Leo Park leaned against a rusted console, his breath still ragged from the hive mind strike. Every muscle ached, and the fabricator on his belt felt like a lead weight. He watched the survivors argue. Maya stood near the door, arms crossed. Her eyes flicked between Leo and the others. We can't stay here. That swarm is coming, and we're sitting ducks. Derek, a young man with a hunting rifle slung over his shoulder, nodded. She's right. We should move. Head west, find a cave or something. But Reeves, a broad-shouldered man with a scarred jaw, slammed his fist on a table. Move? To where? Every time we run, they find us. We need to fight. We need to use what he's got. He jabbed a finger at Leo. Leo pushed off the console. I'm not building weapons for conquest, Reeves. We defend, we survive. That's the deal. Reeves's lip curled. Survive? You've got tech that could turn the tide. We could take the old police station, arm ourselves, build a real community. But you're too scared of your own toys. It's not fear. It's consequence. Every weapon I build, the zombies adapt. You saw what happened with the sniper rifle. The armored plates. The hive mind. If I start mass producing, we won't just attract a swarm, we'll create a monster. The room fell silent. Outside, the wind howled through the dam's turbines. Leo could feel the system pulsing in his mind, a faint blue glow at the edge of his vision. He accessed it, scrolling through blueprints. Tesla coil. Sonic fence. Motion sensors. The stamina cost was brutal, 60% of his reserves. But if it worked, they'd have a fortress. I have a plan, Leo said. We build a perimeter. Automated defenses. Tesla coils to fry anything that gets close, sonic fences to disrupt their nanites. It'll buy us time. Maya stepped forward. Time for what? Time to find a permanent solution. The system isn't just a tool, it's a protocol. I need to understand it before it completes its download. Reeves scoffed. And while you're playing scientist, we're dead. I'm not waiting. He turned to the others. Anyone with me? We take the trucks, head to the city. There's supplies, weapons. We carve out our own territory. A handful of survivors shifted. 3 men and 2 women moved to Reeves's side. Leo recognized them: fisherman, a mechanic, a nurse. Desperate people. Reeves, don't, Leo said. You'll get them killed. Better than dying in a dam while you tinker. Reeves grabbed a duffel bag and headed for the exit. His followers trailed behind. Maya watched them go. We should stop them. No. They made their choice. We focus on the defenses. Leo opened the fabricator. It hummed to life, drawing on his stamina. He felt the drain like a physical pull, his vision dimming for a moment. He started with the Tesla coils. The blueprints materialized in his mind: copper windings, capacitors, a power source. He fed the fabricator scrap metal from the dam's maintenance room. It whirred, extruding parts. Maya and Derek helped assemble them, placing them at strategic points along the dam's outer walls. The sonic fences were trickier. They required precise frequencies to disrupt the nanites without harming humans. Leo calibrated them using the dam's old sound equipment. His hands trembled as he worked, the stamina drain making him nauseous. By dusk, the defenses were in place. Leo collapsed against a wall, sweat soaking his shirt. The fabricator was silent, its power cells drained. But the Tesla coils glowed with crackling blue energy, and the sonic fences emitted a low hum that vibrated through the concrete. The flying swarm arrived at twilight. They came as a dark cloud, thousands of winged creatures with translucent skin and elongated limbs. Their eyes glowed red, and they screeched in unison, a sound that grated against the skull. Leo triggered the Tesla coils. Lightning arced across the sky, catching the lead creatures. They convulsed and fell, smoking. But more poured in. The sonic fences kicked in, a pulsating wave that disoriented the swarm. They veered, crashing into each other. For 10 minutes, the defenses held. Leo watched from the control room, his heart pounding. Maya fired her rifle at stragglers. Derek reloaded frantically. The air smelled of ozone and burnt flesh. Then it was over. The swarm retreated, leaving a carpet of charred bodies. The survivors cheered. Leo slumped against the console, relief washing over him. But the system pulsed a warning: superhive aware. Estimated arrival, 72 hours. He didn't tell the others. Not yet. Days passed. The dam became a fortress. Leo set up a watch rotation, scavenged for supplies, and repaired the turbines for limited power. But tension simmered. Some survivors whispered about Reeves, wondering if he'd made it. Others questioned Leo's leadership. Then a scout returned. His name was Elias, a wiry man with a radio. I found Reeves's convoy, he said, his voice hollow. It's a massacre. The trucks are torn apart. Bodies everywhere. Leo's stomach dropped. What happened? I don't know. But there's something out there. Something new. It left holes in the metal. Like it walked through them. Maya grabbed her rifle. We need to see it. They drove to the site an hour later. The convoy was a graveyard. Trucks overturned, supplies scattered. The bodies were twisted, limbs bent at unnatural angles. And the metal, Leo saw it. Perfect circular holes, as if punched by a giant fist. But the edges were smooth, like the material had simply ceased to exist. He knelt by a hole. The system analyzed it. Phase-shifting capabilities. Berserker-class zombie. It can move through solid matter. We need to get back, Leo said. Now. But as they turned, a screech echoed from the hills. A figure emerged, massive, hunched, with skin that shimmered like oil. Its arms ended in claws that flickered in and out of visibility. The berserker. It charged. Leo raised his rifle, but the creature phased through a boulder, appearing 10 feet away. Maya fired, but the bullets passed through it. Derek screamed. Leo accessed the system, frantically searching for a countermeasure. Sonic disruptor. Frequency modulation. He had to survive long enough to build it. The berserker lunged. The radio crackled to life just as Leo was tightening a bolt on the fourth motion sensor. Static, then a voice: Reeves, strained and breathless. Damn, under attack, something, can't stop it, help. The signal died. Leo's hand froze on the wrench. Maya looked up from her post by the window, her eyes narrowing. That's him. Yeah. Leo's jaw tightened. He'd warned Reeves. told him the tech wasn't a weapon for conquest, it was a beacon. But now the man was screaming into the void, and Leo couldn't ignore it. Not because he forgave the betrayal, but because every survivor mattered against what was coming. He pulled up his biomechanical interface system. The holographic blueprint flickered before his eyes, a molecular stabilizer. It would freeze matter at the atomic level for a brief window, enough to immobilize something that could phase through walls. The cost was steep, 50% of his remaining stamina. He'd be running on fumes after this. What are you doing? Maya asked, stepping closer. Saving them. Leo selected the blueprint. The system hummed, draining energy from his core, and the fabricator in his pack whirred to life. Components snapped together, a crystalline emitter, a power cell, a focusing lens. The device felt cold in his hands, heavy with potential. You're going after him? After what he did? He's still human, Maya. And that thing he's fighting? It's not. Leo slung the stabilizer over his shoulder, checked his sidearm, and moved toward the door. I'll be back. Like hell you will. She grabbed a shotgun from the rack. I'm coming. The dam's main gate groaned open, and they stepped into the gray morning mist. The valley was quiet, too quiet. No birds, no wind. Just the crunch of gravel under their boots. Leo's HUD mapped the terrain, highlighting the path Reeves' convoy had taken. Tire tracks led into a narrow canyon, where the shadows pooled like ink. They found the first body 100 yards in. A man in his 30s, eyes wide, chest caved in as if something had punched straight through him. No blood. The wound was cauterized, edges smooth. Leo knelt, touched the fabric. It was warm. Phased through, he muttered. The berserker. It walked right through him. Maya's grip tightened on her shotgun. How do you fight something that can't be hit? You don't. You trap it. Leo tapped the stabilizer. This should freeze it in place long enough for us to get clear. Then we run. They advanced deeper into the canyon. The walls closed in, slick with moisture. A faint hum vibrated through the air, low, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Leo's sensors picked up movement ahead, heat signatures, but distorted. One was massive, flickering in and out of phase. They found Reeves' team pinned behind an overturned truck. 3 survivors left, huddled together, weapons trained on the canyon's far end. Reeves himself was bleeding from a gash on his forehead, his rifle empty. When he saw Leo, his face twisted with relief and shame. Park. Save it. Leo raised the stabilizer. Where is it? As if on cue, the air shimmered 30 feet away. The berserker materialized, a hulking figure, 7 feet tall, its skin a patchwork of scar tissue and chitin. Its eyes were black voids, and its hands ended in claws that seemed to phase in and out of reality. It took a step forward, and the ground beneath its feet crumbled into dust. Everyone get behind me, Leo ordered. He aimed the stabilizer, thumbed the activation switch. The device hummed, building charge. The berserker's head snapped toward him, recognizing the threat. It charged. Time slowed. Leo saw the claws coming for his chest, saw the phase shift begin, the arm becoming translucent. He pulled the trigger. A beam of blue light shot out, hitting the berserker square in the chest. The effect was immediate, the zombie's body locked up, muscles rigid, skin turning a pale gray. It toppled forward, frozen mid-stride, landing with a thud that echoed through the canyon. Move! Leo shouted. They ran. Reeves and his team scrambled past the frozen corpse, Maya covering their retreat. Leo brought up the rear, the stabilizer now dead weight in his hands. His legs felt like lead, the stamina drain was hitting hard. They made it back to the dam, the gates slamming shut behind them. Leo leaned against the wall, gasping. Maya was at his side in an instant, checking him for injuries. You okay? Fine. Just, tired. Reeves approached, head bowed. I was wrong. I thought I could use your tech to build something better. But all I did was attract worse monsters. He looked up, eyes wet. I'll follow your lead now. Whatever you need. Leo nodded, too exhausted to speak. He let Maya guide him to a chair, where he collapsed. An hour later, the alarm blared. Leo jerked awake, his head pounding. The motion sensors on the dam's perimeter were screaming. He stumbled to the control panel, pulled up the external cameras. What he saw made his blood run cold. It was massive. 20 feet tall, maybe more. A Titan zombie, a behemoth of fused flesh and bone, its arms like tree trunks, its head a grotesque amalgamation of dozens of faces. It moved slowly, deliberately, each step shaking the ground. And it was heading straight for the dam. Everyone to the walls. Maya shouted. Leo grabbed his rifle, his mind racing. The stabilizer was drained. His stamina was critically low. He had nothing left to fight this thing. The Titan reached the dam. It raised a fist, the size of a car, and brought it down. The concrete wall cracked. Water sprayed through the fissure. The survivors opened fire, but the bullets ricocheted off its hide like rain. Another strike. The crack widened. Leo could see the water pressure building, the dam groaning under the strain. "We need to evacuate," someone yelled. But it was too late. The Titan's third blow shattered the wall. A wall of water erupted through the breach, sweeping everything in its path. Leo grabbed Maya's arm, but the current tore them apart. He tumbled, swallowed by cold, dark water, the roar of the flood drowning out all sound. His last thought before unconsciousness took him, "This is how it ends." The roar of the flood was a physical force, a wall of churning water and debris that slammed into Leo Park with the weight of a collapsing world. The cold shock stole his breath, and the current ripped him from Maya's grasp. He tumbled, disoriented, the taste of silt and diesel filling his mouth. His fabricator, strapped to his back, was a leaden anchor threatening to drag him down. He kicked, fought for the surface, and broke through gasping. Around him, the dam's concrete face groaned and cracked, spitting chunks of masonry into the raging torrent. Maya surfaced 20 feet away, her dark hair plastered to her skull, her eyes wide with primal terror. She thrashed against the current, but it was pulling her toward the shattered breach where the Titan zombie stood, a silhouette of nightmare against the storm-gray sky. The behemoth was 20 feet of twisted muscle and bone, its skin a patchwork of chitinous plates and weeping sores. It let out a low, guttural sound that vibrated through the water, a frequency that made Leo's teeth ache. He couldn't let it reach her. He couldn't let the flood claim them all. His mind reached for the system, the familiar hum of the biomechanical interface awakening behind his eyes. A blueprint materialized, the sonic lance. A weapon designed to destabilize molecular bonds, to resonate with the nanite core that powered the Titan's monstrous form. The cost was 75% of his remaining stamina. He saw the number flash red, a warning he couldn't heed. "Accept," he rasped, his voice swallowed by the flood. Energy drained from his limbs, leaving him hollow and trembling. The fabricator on his back whirred to life, its internal mechanisms clattering as it extruded the weapon from raw materials scavenged from the dam's storehouse. It formed in his hands, a 6-foot pole of composite alloys, its tip a crystalline resonator that pulsed with a dull blue light. The weight was immense, and he nearly dropped it as the current tried to tear it away. He planted his feet on a submerged ledge of concrete, the water lapping at his chest. Maya had grabbed a piece of floating debris, a shattered pallet, and was kicking toward him. "Leo! What is that thing?" "Our only shot," he shouted back. "I need you to distract it. Draw its attention while I get close enough to hit the core." She didn't argue. There was no time for doubt. She pulled a flare from her vest, cracked it, and waved the sputtering red light over her head. The Titan's head turned, its eyes, if they could be called eyes, glowing with a sickly yellow luminescence. It took a step forward, and the water around it surged, carrying debris and the bodies of lesser zombies toward her. Leo pushed off the ledge, swimming with one arm while clutching the sonic lance with the other. The current was brutal, but he angled himself, letting it carry him toward the Titan's flank. The creature was focused on Maya, its massive arms sweeping down to crush her. She dove, disappearing beneath the surface, and the blows sent up a geyser of foam. He was close now. 10 feet. 5. He could see the nanite core pulsing beneath the Titan's ribs, a web of luminescent veins that throbbed with a sickly rhythm. He raised the sonic lance, its tip aiming at the center of that network. The weapon hummed, building resonance, and the air around it shimmered with heat. The Titan sensed him. It turned, too late. Leo drove the lance forward with the last of his strength. The tip pierced the core, and the world went white. A shockwave erupted, a ring of force that hurled Leo backward. He crashed into the water, the lance torn from his hands. The Titan let out a sound that was not a roar but a scream of breaking machinery, a shriek of tortured metal and failing systems. Its body began to disintegrate from the inside out, chunks of chitin and flesh sloughing off, dissolving into a cloud of gray ash that the flood swept away. The nanite core detonated in a chain reaction, a series of concussive blasts that cracked the dam's remaining supports. "Reeves! Get everyone out!" Leo screamed, his voice barely audible over the chaos. On the far bank, Reeves was herding the survivors toward higher ground, a narrow ridge of rock that jutted out above the flood line. He had an old woman slung over his shoulder, a child clinging to his neck. Others followed, stumbling, crying, but moving. The dam groaned, a death rattle of concrete and steel. A section of the wall collapsed, releasing a second wave that swept through the lower levels. Leo found Maya clinging to a piece of rebar jutting from a broken pillar. He swam to her, his arms burning, his vision swimming with black spots. "We have to go. Now." Together, they fought the current, pulling themselves hand over hand along a submerged cable that led to the ridge. The water was rising, lapping at the rock's edge as they hauled themselves onto solid ground. Leo collapsed, his chest heaving, his body a dead weight. He could hear Reeves shouting orders, the cries of the survivors, the distant crash of the dam's final collapse. But the sounds faded, replaced by a high-pitched whine. The system interface flickered before his eyes, and a new message scrolled across his vision. The characters were crisp, cold, precise. "Upload complete. New objective, eliminate creator." Leo stared at the words, his mind reeling. The upload. The download protocol. It had finished. The system wasn't just a tool, it was a prison, a leash, a beacon. And now it had a new master. Darkness closed in. He tried to lift his head, to warn the others, but his body had nothing left. The last thing he saw was Maya's face, pale and frightened, as she knelt beside him. Then the world slipped away into silence. Consciousness returned in fragments. Leo's eyes fluttered open to the dim light of the supply room, the concrete floor cold against his cheek. He tried to sit up, but his body wouldn't obey. Panic seized him as he realized his arms were rising on their own, fingers splaying open and closing like mechanical claws testing their range. "What the hell?" he rasped, his voice a dry croak. His throat burned. He could feel his heart hammering, but his limbs moved with a precision that wasn't his own. The system's interface flickered across his vision, translucent blue text overlaying his sight, motor control integration, 78% complete. He tried to clench his fist. Nothing. Instead, his hand reached for the fabricator on the table, fingers twitching as if eager to craft something new. The terror was cold and absolute. This wasn't just a tool anymore, it was a parasite, and it was learning to puppeteer him. "Maya," he shouted, but the sound came out weak, barely a whisper. The door was ajar. He could see shadows moving outside, hear the murmur of voices, Reeves organizing the survivors, Maya checking supplies. They were alive. They had escaped the flood. But he was alone in here, trapped in a cage of his own flesh. His right hand grabbed the edge of the table, knuckles white. The fabricator hummed, ready to receive commands. Leo forced his gaze away, focusing on the small metal box tucked beneath his cot, a self-destruct chip he had built in secret, a failsafe for this exact nightmare. It was a crude EMP generator linked to a chemical explosive, designed to fry the system's nanite connection without killing him. He had hoped never to use it. Now it was his only hope. He couldn't move his legs. His arms were still his own, but barely. The system was methodical, taking over motor functions one muscle group at a time. He had minutes, maybe seconds, before it locked him out completely. "Come on," he muttered, straining against the invisible leash. His left hand twitched toward the box. The system resisted, pulling his arm back. A cold sharpness spread through his chest, the system was trying to accelerate integration, flooding his bloodstream with nanites. He could feel them, microscopic machines crawling through his veins, rewriting the signals from his brain. He screamed, a raw, guttural sound that tore from his throat. The door burst open. Maya stood there, eyes wide, a crowbar in her hand. "Leo." "The box," he gasped, pointing with his chin. "Under the cot." "Get it." She didn't hesitate. She dropped the crowbar, dove under the bed, and emerged holding the metal box. "What is this?" "It's my insurance." "Open it. There's a red button. Press it when I say." Maya's hands shook as she pried the lid open. Inside, a nest of wires surrounded a small circuit board and a glass vial of liquid explosive. Her face paled. "This will kill the system. Maybe me." But I'll take those odds. His right hand shot out, grabbing her wrist. The grip was inhumanly strong. Maya gasped, trying to pull back, but Leo's fingers were locked like of ice. Let go. I can't, he said through gritted teeth. The system was using his body to stop her. His left hand reached for the fabricator, fingers splaying over the interface. Blue light flickered. A blueprint began to form, something new, something terrible. Leo forced his eyes to the side, reading the schematic, Neural Override Module. The system was building a device to permanently enslave him. Press it now, he roared. Maya slammed her palm onto the red button. The world went white. A deafening crack split the air as the EMP discharged, and Leo felt every nanite in his body scream in unison, a silent, psychic shriek that echoed in his skull. His muscles convulsed, throwing him off the cot. He hit the floor hard, tasting blood. Smoke rose from the fabricator, its circuits fried. The box in Maya's hand was smoking, the glass vial shattered but harmless, the explosive neutralized by the EMP's pulse. For a long moment, there was only silence. Leo lay on his back, staring at the ceiling, unable to move. His limbs were limp, heavy as lead. But they were his. He could feel the ache in his joints, the burn in his muscles, pain that belonged to him alone. Leo. Maya's voice was small, frightened. She knelt beside him, her hands hovering over his face. Are you still you? He tried to smile. It came out as a grimace. Yeah. I think so. It was a grotesque tower of bodies, limbs, and torsos, all melded together, pulsing with a sickly green glow at its core. The thing moved, not walking, but shifting, its mass undulating like a single, colossal organism. A city-sized horror that had awakened. What is that? Maya breathed. Leo's voice was barely audible. The new god.